Okay, so my questions are: what were the benefits of the Mudsill theory, and how was it around after the Civil War? Okay, so the lives of African Americans after the Civil War, because they were free and they wanted their independence, they asked their white owners for a part of their land so they could build up their own stuff and become independent, and this was sharecropping. So they still suffered a sense of slavery in that they had a lot of restrictions against them, and they were very poor, and their wages were really low. Sharecropping was when the whites would give them a piece of their land and give them the tools and everything so that they could build up their farm, sell crops, and become independent as they paid off their debt for using their land and everything. But what whites would do is they would tack on extra stuff so that they would never be out of debt, and they would always have that free labor working for them, and it was kind of like slavery. They were also given lower wages because they wanted to prevent them from becoming property owners, because if they were property owners, they could then vote, and they didn't want them to put in their vote and stuff. One person described it as the white has all the power, wealth, and privileges, while the other, the black, faced daily, seemingly unending incidents of terror and humiliation, with hardly any freedom, very little wealth, and absolutely no justice. So that kind of shows how they were affected by this. They also suffered something called the Black Codes, or also known as the Jim Crow laws. They started around the 1870s, and they were used to reiterate black inferiority. Somebody wrote that said, Jim Crow laws was not merely about the physical separation of black and whites, nor was segregation strictly about laws. In order to maintain dominance, whites needed more than statues and signs that specified whites and blacks only. They had to assert and reiterate black inferiority with every word, gesture, and aspect of both public and private lives. So some examples of black codes would be cohabitation. If there was a mixed race couple living together and spending the night together, they would be fined $500, and the black person would go to jail. Some states had yearly labor contracts that made blacks sign them so that they would always be employed and given those low wages. Their crime punishments were a lot more harder and severe than those that the whites suffered. The people also hired out their workers as cheap labor, and they could treat them however they want, which was kind of like slavery. Some blacks could be arrested on the grounds of vagrancy if they could not at any time prove that they were employed to somebody, and they would be sold into black convict labor. Okay, so this kind of benefited the whites because they were getting all this free and cheap labor, and it was legal because in the Emancipation Proclamation, no, I did that out. In the 13th Amendment, it said that neither slowly or involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for a crime, whereof the party should only duly convicted, shall exist within the United States. So it was basically saying that there was no more slavery, but they could be slaves if they were arrested as convicts. So this benefited the whites as a legal way for them to, and it kind of an excuse to arrest blacks and get that free labor. So what they would do is, during this era, 10% of the people who were arrested were white and 90% were black, and they'd take those blacks into convict concentration camps, like labor camps, and they'd make them work. And it was almost worse than slavery because slaves at least were treated a little bit better because of their economic value, whereas these blacks could be arrested easily and they were treated worse than slaves, and because they were just property working for them. And the jailers would hire out these blacks to factories and industries as for them to get profit, and the factories and industries just had free labor from it, so they treated them really, really bad. And most often these people were arrested for misdemeanors and really not big deal crimes. Yeah. Okay.
And good.